Actually, so funny, I prefer to
I think
stand
we
up,
already.
like in a podium, like what she's doing. It seems
Is
more
he giving
natural.
us
Yeah.
Okay, good evening. Thanks to the both of you for attending this League of Women Voters of Hopkinsville forum discussion. We appreciate your participation. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization, and we thank you so much for participating and providing your potential constituents an opportunity to hear from you. Questions have been prepared by a closed committee of League members and relate to the potential office of the candidate. A coin has been flipped to determine who will speak first, and Mr. Handy won the coin toss, so he will give his opening remarks first. Each candidate has 2 minutes for opening remarks, and then candidates are given 3 minutes to answer each question with 1 minute for rebuttal if they would like. Just raise your hand or speak out if you'd like to rebut. And then each candidate has 2 minutes for closing remarks. Candidates are timed by league members. A yellow sign means you have 30 seconds left, so try to keep your eye on the sheets there. And a red sign means your time is up, please stop. And we'd appreciate you honoring that. Okay, so we will begin with the opening remarks, and Mr. Handy, you'll go first.
Okay, thank you so much to the League of Women Voters. My name is Matthew Handy. I'm 24 years old and one of the youngest candidates on the ballot, also the youngest candidate running for Hopkinsville City Council. I was born and raised right here in Hopkinsville. I'm a proud graduate of Christian County High School, class of 2017, and a product of Hopkinsville Community College, and currently online at Midway University. Though I'm young, I'm also one of the most qualified running for City Council, as I'm the only candidate that has experience both on the federal level, serving as a congressional intern and staffer, and on the state level as the executive assistant to our Kentucky State Treasurer, Allison Ball. I'm currently a business and marketing teacher at Hopkinsville High School. I've been fortunate enough to have been able to experience so much at such a young age. And a lot of people have asked me, why come back to Hopkinsville? I'm in a demographic where a lot of individuals my age go off to college or get offers or career opportunities elsewhere and never look back. I wanted to be the exception. My students have a tendency to ask me why a certain assignment is necessary. Well, here's my why as it relates to coming back to Hopkinsville. I've been afforded opportunities, but my heart and passion is right here in Hopkinsville and Ward 12. I must say, I do not come from a noble family that has rich ties and heritage in this community, but I was raised by a hardworking father that taught me to be true to myself and to fight for what I believe in. And I strongly believe that it is time for a change in Ward 12 after 30 years of inconsistent leadership. My top priorities include citizenship, citizen safety and security, education and mentorship, workforce development, homeowner incentives, small business and nonprofit organization support, and quality of life incentives. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks, you may now have 2 minutes.
Good evening to the citizens of historic Hopkinsville, and a special thank you to the League of Women Voters. I am the current city councilman for Ward 12. I am married to Joyce Brooks and have 2 adult children. My parents, Calvin Brooks and Penny Brooks White, are deceased, but still living strongly within me. As an educator for 21 years, a head coach for 8 years, and a licensed mortician since 1988, the ability to communicate, listen, and see people for who they are, not what they are, is a gift from God, which my parents nurtured by instilling integrity and never seeking personal glory, and to remain humble. My opponent thinks that my many years of service on council is a negative. However, I believe it shows stability, sacrifice, service, commitment, along with accountability, knowledge, and wisdom. Other topics that have been alluded to by my opponent, budget and crime. Now for the facts. The budget at present is $43 million, which he continues to say grows. but 65% of that goes towards employees. 14.7 is left for projects. We are able to have 9.9 million in savings and a balanced budget with no tax increase and reduced taxes in 2011. As for crime, there is 2,978 total crimes that were committed in 2012, which was the highest. But from January to September of 2021, only 1,723 total crimes were committed. Crimes have been committed by Cain and Abel, but being complacent is not an option. We spent $300,000 on public safety for 72 new cameras and 13 replacements. Our security upgrades have afforded us $2 million in liability insurance that no one else has based upon KLC, Kentucky League of Cities. The facts speak for themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. The first question is going to you, Mr. Handy. What would be your top 2 priorities if you're elected?
So, top 2 priorities, number 1 that I continue to stress is citizen safety and security. That is going to be something that I continue to reiterate, and he can spew those numbers, but right now, that is a focus for Ward 12, particularly Bryan Street, High Street, and some of Campbell. The second is incentives for young professionals to keep them here or return after graduation. That is comprised of 3 elements: workforce development, high-quality jobs with competitive pay, hybrid workforce recruitment. The second is home buying incentives, and then the third, quality of life incentives.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Brooks, you get the opportunity. What would be your top 2 priorities if you're elected?
Well, the first one would be home ownership. If we can increase home ownership, we will increase our tax base. And in doing so, we also increase the revenue in Hopkinsville, which would afford us to be able to do a lot more within the city. Home ownership brings about its own uniqueness. But through that process, one of the plans or ideas that I have is a possible program called 5 for 5, where you can put $5,000 down, or you can put $5,000 on a closing cost. In doing that, it will help new homeowners possibly be able to get into a home as opposed to renting. The second would be job growth. We have literally 800 new jobs that are getting ready to come into Christian County and Hopkinsville. And that's not even including the new facility or business is going to take place, Rural King, in the mall. We do these things for the purpose of growth, but as businesses start to come in and grow, so does retail. In doing this, we have higher paying jobs, better quality jobs, and a better quality of life. And quality of life is established in many facets, such as through recreation, that we had, for example, Summer Salute, walking trails, but just simply the quality of life. Everybody is important to have that opportunity to be able to live within your means and have a good lifestyle.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, you get the opportunity to answer this question first this time. Would you change any current priorities?
At this time, no. The priorities that we have established, we've increased security in the sense of cameras that I spoke of a few minutes ago. We literally are adding about 85 new cameras throughout the city. The flock cameras that we have established, when they first were placed in the city, when we first got them, they literally stopped 11 incidences, meaning people who had carjacked or stolen cars that had come through Hopkinsville were arrested before anything happened. That's crime prevention. The biggest problem with crime is simply just due to the fact of poverty. When you have poverty, lack of jobs, lack of education, then people turn to crime. We first have to start in the school. And as an educator, we tend to see that a lot. And it's the children who suffer. And a lot of times it becomes a recycling door in the sense that those children don't get the opportunities and they fall behind.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, would you change any current priorities?
I would say yes. Again, listening to Mr. Brooks, it sounds great, but here's the issue that I have. So I am a loyal patron of the Mixer and the Local, and the biggest thing that I see and that I've spoke with small business owners in our downtown area is the homelessness. So, he spoke about the crime rates and the crime numbers, but we need to address the homelessness issue, and that is something that he has neglected. So as I was making my rounds and speaking with our small business owners, there is a negative connotation. So we have community members that are afraid to go into these establishments because of the panhandlers. And Mr. Brooks has yet to address those issues. Again, and another thing is cleanup. We had a recording label come to town that I got to visit, and the owner was showing me the needles that are on the roads. That is an issue. So again, we can talk about crime, and we can talk about the cameras, but we also need to address the homelessness issue, and that is something that I feel has been an unspeakable subject.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, what?
Hey, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. You have 1 minute.
The homelessness issue that he's speaking of, in working with the Salvation Army, we're in the process of working with them at present. Right now, with them, they literally had 123 households that were through COVID, where people were able to get housing and to get off the streets and to get back into the workforce. The interesting part, when people use scare tactics to try to get votes, is the problem is you also need to do your research and get the facts. And the facts are 28 households housed through homeless prevention grants are given 151 total households. In Christian County, that's 88%. Hopkins County, 9%. Others, 3%. Their homeless people are literally coming here.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, what do you see as your role in advocating for the city at the state level?
That is a very unique question, and I see it as this. I've had an opportunity to work in Frankfurt, and so I've been exposed to things. I've had an opportunity to make those connections and make those relationships, and I think the biggest thing as a council member or an elected official on the local level is to have those strong relationships, so when things come up, you are able to champion city initiatives and fight for the needs of the community. And I will share this: when the tornado hit in Mayfield, my sister, who is disabled, was displaced, and we could not locate her. And I had a call log of almost every single member of our General Assembly makeup, and Democrat and Republican, and I called those individuals, and we were able to locate my sister. So with that same kind of passion that I had for my sister and searching for her would be the same kind of passion I would have for the city and advocating for the changes needed, the improvements needed, and so forth and so on, because I am so passionate about this community.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, what do you see as your role in advocating for the city at the state level?
Whenever we as city council members advocate for our city at the state level, normally we go through, it's somewhat like a chain of command, because you cannot have all 12 council members going in with different views and different perspectives. Normally that's handled through the mayor. However, that being said, we do need to have relationships. Most of us do have relationships. Of course, for us, for myself, it's sort of beneficial because Walker Thomas has been a council member here before, as well as me knowing the family of our other representative, the senator. And it is a situation to where when you have those relationships and you build those relationships, it's not a problem to pick up the phone and call when you need something, when you have questions. And that is the relationship that you need, because there are things, for example, trying to get the state roads paved here. A lot of times people think that they're city roads, but they're not, they're state. So one of the things that we have done was getting the state on board, because of their specifications were more lenient than the city specifications. So when Atmos or HWA or any of the utility companies tear up our streets, we have the ability to talk to the state representatives, to get them on board with us, and to try to bring about those changes. And bring about those changes, even though they still may cut into some of these roads, when they're paved or when they're patched, the patch is not nearly as deplorable as it once used to be. So that's just one aspect. And getting them on board to where they help us notify the utilities when these roads are going to be done, so that when they come down to pave them, we're all on the same playing field, and we can do this in a unity format.
Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Brooks, how would you enforce existing building codes to address decaying buildings in the city?
I would enforce them. Well, first of all, we have a code of ordinances that already exists, and our building codes that are on the books, we need to actually employ them the way that they need to be employed. And when I say that, right now we have a situation to where our dilapidated housing is an issue. Yeah, particularly in Ward 12, you have a lot of rental property. So it would be nice if we come up with an idea of the 5 for 5 that I spoke of, trying to get more home ownership and not rental property. But one example is they're doing a historical district down here on Main Street that they're working on. That's one thing to work with the building codes. In the downtown area and the businesses, we go through the Kentucky Housing Exchange, excuse me, the T grants and grants that the state offers, and we typically give incentives and rebates to help them. For example, Mr. Venerable, State Farm, we helped him. Hal McCoy in doing his buildings, meaning the office buildings and things of that nature. We helped him. We also have a TIF program, which is a tax increment finance district. That can be set up anywhere, 80 for 20. So these businesses have the opportunity to be able to get rebates, to be able to get tax incentives, as well as to get money from the city. Sometimes the red tape takes a little long, but it still gets done. And we're trying to, in the next probably year to two with Mr. Body, we have already started to implement trying to remove some of the red tape to speed up the process, not only with the buildings, the businesses and the buildings in downtown and throughout the city, but also with the neighborhood associations and the Inner City Reds program.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, how would you enforce the existing building codes to address decaying buildings in the city?
Yeah, I think my opponent did actually touch on that, and that is something that we both agree on, is that there is a need to enforce these codes, whether that be incentives, rebates, but I think what we need to do is go back and get an understanding of what those codes actually are. And then once we have an understanding of those codes, we are able to enforce them, because right now, if you talk to somebody, matter of fact, I had a conversation with an individual the other day, we don't know what they are. And so getting an understanding of what those codes are, what those restrictions might be, would better help the owners of that property, as well as common individuals that may not be as well versed. So again, understanding what they are, and then offering those incentives.
Thank you.
As a rebuttal.
Certainly. 1 minute.
And him making the statement as far as, I guess you say, the public trying to understand those codes. There's probably a couple of ways that you can do that or go about that process. One, anything that you want that's worth having, you have to seek. Coming up here, talking to CDS, getting that information. 2, calling your council member and asking them, could you possibly help me understand what the codes might be? And for us to come sit down, whether it be your place of business or your home or my home, and we sit down and have a conversation to go over that, what your concerns are. Or 3, to reach out, and we have more or less like some type of community forum in particular areas where similar businesses or people may have similar ideas, and we could address them all at once.
May I respond?
Yes, 1 minute.
So, interesting enough, I did direct them where they needed to go, this individual called you several times, and there was no response. There were several emails. So again, when we do not have a council member that is present in the sense that they check their phones, they check those emails, they check voicemails, it's going to be hard. So again, I know that life happens and we get busy, but as an elected official, local, statewide, we have to make it our mission and our priority to be accessible, be present, and also when somebody reaches out to you, you call them back.
All right, Mr. Handy, how would you propose addressing the homeless issue facing the city?
That is a really good question. I've been in contact with several people, several downtown business owners, and they ask me that all the time. And to tell you that I have an answer, I would be doing you a disservice. We do realize that there is a homelessness issue, and the Salvation Army can only do so much. We also realize that. And it is no secret that they have taken in as many as they can. And so when that happens, what do we do? What can we do? So I have proposed a sanctuary of our own where we would house these homeless individuals. We would clothe them, we would feed them, we would make sure that they had the needs for basic water and things of that sort. And there is several business owners or landlords right here in Hopkinsville on Virginia Street that would be willing to do that. They own several properties. The issue is the city is not being conducive to what they're trying to do. So I would say bringing them in, listening to their initiative, and having them pitch this idea, because right now there is nothing. We are seeing these individuals, and when they're out on the streets, they are, in some cases, maybe drugged up, I don't know, but that has to be addressed. And when we have willing individuals, willing residents that want to help, landlords that want to step in, we have to hear them out. And that goes back to my statement earlier, when you have a council member that's not listening to them, it's hard to get in here. It's hard to get the ear of a council member that's not present. And they have shared with me several times where they've reached out to him with this initiative, and it's not being heard. So again, if I'm elected, that would be amongst my top priority, to get them in here amongst the council chambers and have them tell us what they would like to do, propose the idea, because right now we have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, how would you propose addressing the homeless issue facing the city?
The homeless issue is a financial issue. You have a situation where you basically are trying to figure out where to put them or what to do with the homeless people. And it's interesting in connection or conjunction to what my opponent is talking about, to get them in here. They're walking up and down my street. I fed them many times at my house, but he wouldn't know that, nor would anyone else, because it's not something for me to discuss. At the same time, some of them basically are on drugs, so you have to get them through a rehab program, which is very difficult to do because they don't have addresses. So it's not just as simple as saying, hey, let's just get them help and get them a place to stay. All those things cost money. And trying to put money in all the programs that exist still is not enough money. The Salvation Army is working on a plan. They're asking the city at present to try to hopefully put them on as an agency. But we are in a position to where we cannot do that at this time as far as doing that. And the Salvation Army is probably one of the best things to go through. Multiple times, my brother and I have gone hunting and taken literally deer meat down to the Salvation Army to feed the people. So it's amazing when someone mentions certain things about constituents or people not getting help, and that's fine. But at the same time, the question needs to be asked, Mr. Hamby's reached me before. He didn't call me. And I wonder, did that person get what they need from Mr. Hamby?
I'd like to, if I can.
One minute for you,
Okay.
yes.
That was a lot there, but I wanted to clarify, when I said they, I was not meaning the homeless. I was actually talking about two landlords that own several properties in Ward 12. That's who I was referring to. We need to listen to them, and to piggyback off of what you just said, did I help them? Meaning the landlords, I'm not in a position to help them. But what I can say is, as far as the homeless, if I see that they are in need, I am helping them. That's how I was raised. I have been taught that if you see someone in need, you help them. You don't give them a handout, you give them a hand up. And so, to answer your question, yes, I have on multiple occasions helped those that have been in need.
All right, our next question goes to Mr. Brooks first. If elected, what is your vision for the future of Hopkinsville?
My vision for the future of Hopkinsville was the same, or is the same as it was years ago. To make a difference. How do you make a difference? You make a difference by having to have a vision to visually see where you are going and how to get there. Now, what does that mean and what does that entail? That means doing some of the hard decisions, getting utilities down 41A when there's nothing there. But now we have a distribution center that employs 1,000 people. The Walmart Supercenter is out there on 41A. None of those things were there when myself and other council members elected and made choices and made a decision to spend money to go put utilities out there. Now you have neighborhoods, literally subdivisions. You had a golf course. All of these things, that's vision. To turn around and create a TIF program so that you have a neighborhood Walmart build over in Indian Hills, and the businesses, the small businesses in Indian Hills came in here, and some of them used some of that money to revitalize their businesses. So when you're talking about vision, vision is about having the foresight of where you're going and what do you need to do to get there. And a lot of times you're gonna have to create programs. The neighborhood associations putting $500,000 into the inner city res in order for the elderly who own their homes to develop and build. Because they're on fixed income, they cannot do that. They cannot build their homes or remodel or fix their homes. So we create this program to assist them. So those are the visions. The water parks, the skate parks, recreation, even to the extent of the Rails to Trails, the sportsplex, the WIN program, to have the vision to draw people to Hopkinsville as if it is a flame to a moth, and to try to get people to come here to live, to have a better quality of life, reside, and raise their children.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, if elected, what is your vision for the future of Hopkinsville?
So I would like to say that when I first decided to come back, I saw the potential, and it was because I have a vision for what I would like to see Hopkinsville look like. I would like to see Hopkinsville more inclusive to people like me, and by that I mean young people. And this is no political policy or anything. This is just, I would like to see more young people running for office. And so with that comes affordable housing, safe parks, environmental quality, connected, functional, and funded transportation systems. Hopkinsville would be livable. Safety is a top priority. Fully funding the Hopkinsville Police Department and the Fire Department. Better paying, high paying, and tech industry jobs along with hybrid jobs. Those are just a few things that I would like to see in the coming years for Hopkinsville, and to also challenge the status quo. We've got a lot of seasoned politicians that have been in these seats for such a long time, and a lot of people always say it's time for change, or we need to do something about it. The citizens of Hopkinsville have a moral obligation to vote, and the citizens of Hopkinsville have a choice now. You heard Mr. Brooks' vision, and you've heard mine, and this is kind of where it's come to now, is are we going to continue to stay with 30 years of ineffective leadership in the sense that he is not present, or are we going to shift gears and move to a better and brighter and inclusive city that has a present, effective, and understanding representative for Ward 12. I've walked the streets of Ward 12. I patrol the streets of Ward 12. I know what they need. I've spoke to them, and this is outside of Virginia Street. I'm hitting High Street. I'm hitting Campbell. I'm hitting Bryan. I'm hitting those streets, and I'm realizing their vision is like mine. They're ready for change, and this is the opportunity now more than ever.
Thank you. 1 minute.
I would just say simply that he speaks of my years of service on council, and he said it's ineffective, and he says that other negative things. However, we literally run a city council race practically every other year for the most part. In the years that I have been here, I was elected by the public, by the people, not just Ward 12, but by the citizens of Hopkinsville. So I guess what Mr. Hamby is saying is that the citizens are wrong.
1 minute.
Thank you. So I would, just to piggyback off of what you just said, that is not what I said. You can take that however you would like to take it. My point was that we often hear citizens saying that we need change, we need this, we need that. And with all due respect, 2 years ago we sat here in this chamber. Matter of fact, a week to the day, actually. And I looked at you and you looked at me and you said, wow, you've got a bright future. And the future is now. So again, I would say to the voters, you have a choice. And I would leave it at that. And Mr. Brooks, again, I respect you wholeheartedly. But I think that it is time now. 30 years is a long time. And you've done some good. But it is time now to pass the baton.
Mr. Handy, this question comes to you first. Should elected officials be loyal to their party platform or to all of their constituents?
So that is a good question. And I have always believed that it is people before party. And so when you are canvassing, as I have, I've met a lot of people. And we don't all see through the same lens. We don't identify as Republicans. And, you know, that's the beauty of our democracy. We can agree to disagree. And so when I'm hitting doors that are heavily Democrat and they hear that I'm a Republican, they automatically rule me out. And then I get to speaking about some of the things that I would like to do, and they realize that I'm not that bad after all. But if elected, I would keep the residents of Ward 12 in mind as I'm making decisions. And when it comes down to it, we can all agree that we need better roads, we need higher paying jobs, we need affordable housing. Those are fundamentals that we're going to agree on, whether we're Republican or Democrat. And so if we can agree on those fundamentals, there are going to be some things that come up that aren't going to be popular. My stance will not be popular. But when we get to the basis of the fundamentals of what this council was established for, and that was the betterment and the quality of life, then whether Democrat or Republican, I will support and I will be loyal.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, should elected officials be loyal to their party platform or to all of their constituents?
I would say we should first take lead or follow the lead of our Constitution, which begins, we the people. We're for the people, by the people. The power lies within the people and the public. In Ward 12, throughout the city of Hopkinsville, in all the other wards that surrounds this table. And this city council and this body was placed here, regardless of what their party may be. They were placed here to do a job. And in doing so, the power from the people is what we should do. That always comes first. As far as your party, each party, whether it be Republican, Democrat, or Independent, they have different agendas. They have different campaigns and supporters that they support for various reasons. And we tend to have different views within those parties when they all tend to come together in campaigns such as this one. But even with that, when we're sitting here and we're voting, very few issues that come before local city council officials, very few are politically driven. Sometimes that does happen, but very few.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, this question to you first. What specific issues do you see in your ward, and how would you propose addressing them?
I would say dilapidated housing. Code enforcement is a big deal. Right now with the implementation of our new technology, upgrading of our computer systems and things is gonna make it easier for our code enforcement officers out here on the street to be able to send that information back without having to drive back and forth. A lot of people don't understand how that correlates with the Lock Next Door program. We are going after these pieces of property that are dilapidated, where you have trash and weeds and things of this nature, which are eyesores. And it does not look good when you're trying to recruit businesses or when you're trying to sell a home to someone new that's moving in the area. But I don't think people realize that is somewhere between $8 to $10 million of an additional revenue source by getting or gaining these properties and then putting them back out there on the market. Because a lot of these pieces of property, and it's not all, but a lot of these pieces of property, the people that own them no longer even live here. But I can assure you where they live, their grass is getting cut, their houses are being taken care of. And that's where we have a big problem. And I think you're gonna see we've hired staff members to literally focus on just those things. That is a priority in not just Ward 12, but throughout the city.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, what specific issues do you see in your ward, and how would you propose addressing them?
The issues that I'm seeing, kind of touched on, is the housing and code enforcement. And the second would be our neighborhoods. We need police presence in our neighborhoods, especially in our higher traffic crime neighborhoods, to include one of my own, High Street, and then Bryan Street. Those are two very crime polluted areas that I think we need more traffic or police patrol and more surveillance if possible. So those would be two things that I would address almost immediately.
Thank you. We have reached the portion of the evening where you get closing remarks, and you have 2 minutes. And Mr. Brooks, you would go first.
In my closing, I want you all to know that you matter to me as a whole. As councilman, I carefully consider how decisions are made by our local government and how those decisions will impact my constituents, their families, and their children, as well as all residents of the city of Hopkinsville. I am truly thankful for the opportunity to serve you, as I could not have done any of the past efforts without your support, and I would like to continue to do so. Please remember to vote on November the 8th for Phillip Brooks.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, you now have 2 minutes.
Okay. I would like to thank the League of Women for hosting this forum and ensuring that the residents of Hopkinsville are informed and up to date. We certainly appreciate your hard work and your efforts. I would like to just take this moment to thank the residents of Ward 12 and the citizens at large for the support and the love that has been shown thus far. This is almost like a movement that has kind of transpired. I'm seeing a lot of younger people that want to get involved, that want to cast votes, that want to potentially run for office. And when I launched this campaign, that is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to inspire the next generation of leaders that long after I'm gone, that are able to look back and say, man, if it weren't for individuals like that getting involved and inspiring me to do the same. And so that was the purpose of this Young Voices Matter campaign. And again, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback thus far and a lot of support, but I would urge the voters and the residents of Hopkinsville to stay informed and stay updated. Pay close attention to the votes that Mr. Brooks has cast. Matter of fact, go back and look at some of the things that he's voted for, and you will note who has your best interest. So again, I would like to thank you all for tuning in tonight, and again, Young Voices do matter.
Thank you. On behalf of myself, Martha White, and the League of Women Voters of Hopkinsville, I would like to thank you both, Mr. Handy and Mr. Brooks, for participating tonight in this forum and allowing the residents of Ward 12 to hear from you both. This program is available on various media outlets until Election Day, November 8th, 2022. It is available on our Facebook page, the League of Women Voters Hopkinsville, and the city's cable channel on Spectrum 376. Thanks again to both candidates and to the city of Hopkinsville and to the mayor for arranging for the league to use the public council chambers for these forums. Thanks so much and good night.
Thank you.
Thank